in our support for missions. So, Craig, could you please come forward, tell us a little bit about YouthWorks, in case we're not familiar with YouthWorks, but then tell us about this particular project that we have in mind this year.
Thanks, Stu. Good morning, friends. I'm Craig. I'm the CEO of YouthWorks, and it really is my humble privilege to represent YouthWorks as your special missions project for 2025. For those of you who don't know YouthWorks, it's an organisation of the Sydney Anglican Diocese, and our vision is to see an effective youth and children's ministry in every church. Now, the astute observers among you will notice it doesn't say Sydney and it doesn't say Anglican, which gives me warrant to pursue global domination with the gospel through partnering with churches and schools to equip them that they might see an effective youth and children's ministry in every church. Here in Sydney, we do a lot of work with local churches. In New South Wales, YouthWorks are the shoulders that every SRE, School Scripture Ministry, stands on. But I want to share with you this morning what YouthWorks is doing in all the world. The Apostle Paul wrote to the church in Colossae to say to them that the gospel that has come to you all over the world, this gospel is bearing fruit and growing. Now, I've got a bit of an advantage over the Apostle Paul in this one aspect. He'd never been to the church of Colossae, but yet he knew that because of them, the gospel over all the world is bearing fruit and growing. I had the privilege of preaching at the 9 o'clock service this morning. I've spoken here once or twice before, and I see a lot of familiar faces and friends. So I don't feel like I'm a particular stranger to some of you, and Swizz and through Stu are in my prayers on a regular basis. And I want to assure you and encourage you that the gospel that is preached here, the gospel that has saved you, that you have built your life on, all over the world, this gospel is bearing fruit and growing. How does YouthWorks do that? Well, what we do over all the world is two things. We educate church leaders and pastors, and we equip emerging Christian leaders and those who are involved in ministry to children and youth. In terms of educating church leaders and pastors, what we want to do is ensure that they know what good looks like in terms of an effective youth and children's ministry. They don't need to know how to get there, they just need to know who to call. And an increasing number of Anglican primates, archbishops, bishops, rectors, archdeacons, provosts, youth and children's leaders around the world are contacting my team for help. And it is our great privilege to bless the world with the riches we have here in Sydney. Know-how as well as financial riches. The second thing we do is equip emerging Christian leaders with the resources they need to promote intergenerational discipleship. The problem that we are looking to solve today is in Africa. 60% of Africa are under the age of 25. The median age of that continent is 19. Yet there is almost no specific training of pastors in Africa for youth and children's ministry. That's the problem that YouthWorks is solving as we seek to educate pastors and equip leaders. Let me share with you some exciting news of how the gospel is growing and bearing fruit over all the world. Up in the north of Africa, in Egypt, in Cairo, at the Alexandria School of Theology, I sent my colleague, the principal of YouthWorks College, the world's only standalone theological college, specialising in the training of youth and children's ministers. I sent him to Cairo. He spent a week there delivering Youth Ministry 101 to the faculty and the students. It was recorded, it was translated into Arabic, and now pastors are trained in Arabic to go into the 10 Muslim majority nations of North Africa, equipped with tools to start effective youth and children's ministries in some very hostile countries. Mike Dicker, the principal, and I are going back there in February to further that work. Secondly, this is Anthony Dandato. Anthony's the principal of the Harare Theological College where's Harare? Zimbabwe. He reached out to me because he is also the national director of a ministry apprenticeship scheme, taking young people who are thinking, I want to go to Bible college and be a pastor. Well, let's give them an apprenticeship. We know it in Sydney as MTS. And so he takes prospective Zimbabwean theological students on this 2-year apprenticeship. He reached out to me 2 years ago to say, Craig, these young adults who I'm getting for the 2-year apprenticeship, they are nowhere theologically, and I've got to teach them how to adult, how to run a diary, how to just turn up on time. And I spent 2 years just trying to just get them to the start line, let alone testing them and discerning their fitness for full-time ministry. I need help. And to that help, as a country, we've got to start back not with 18-year-olds, but with 10 and 12-year-olds and put them on a 10-year discipleship pathway so that they become mature, disciple-making disciples. Then they do the 2-year ministry apprenticeship. Then they can come to Bible college, and then we're off to the races. We've got to turn the dial in terms of the training of our pastors. And so, after my colleague, the principal of YouthWorks College, was in Cairo, he went down to Zimbabwe to the Harare Theological College and delivered Youth Ministry 101 to the faculty and as in-service training to pastors in the Harare region. The full name for Youth Ministry 101 is the Biblical Principles for Contextualised Youth Ministry. We'll call it Youth Ministry 101. It's a course we deliver here in Sydney, and we confer advanced and graduate diplomas through the Australian University of Theology. So this is a fair income higher education course. He delivered it in April last year. The deputy principal is a man called Perish. We left all the training resources, all the lecture notes, the assessment, Rubicons and so on, with Anthony. His deputy, Perish, thought, I can see a way I can contextualise this course even more for the Zimbabwean context. I'm going to deliver Youth Ministry 101 to the third-year students in their final semester. At Christmas time last year, I reached out to Anthony on this Zoom call, and I said, Anthony, I heard that, sorry, it was via email. I heard that Perish had a crack at delivering it himself. We've equipped an Indigenous trainer to deliver Youth Ministry 101 to the next generation of pastors. And I had this nagging doubt, maybe this stuff that YouthWorks is sending across the world, maybe it's just arrogant, white fella Western cultural imperialism and really isn't a gospel biblical thing. I said, Anthony, how did it go? Was it any good? He messaged back, yes, the students had 2 very clear pieces of strong feedback for you. I thought, better take this like a man. Let's have a video call and you can give it to me straight. So on this video call, I said, Anthony, you said students had some feedback. Yes, 2 very clear pieces of strong feedback about Youth Ministry 101 delivered by Perish. Okay, give it to me. They said, why did you wait until third year to teach us this? And why is this not an integral part of every year of our training? It is now an integral part of the 3-year Bachelor of Theology at the Harare Theological College. We're educating pastors. I'll come back to George Whitfield College shortly. Equipping leaders. This is Kizito Wafula. He's a youth minister in Western Kenya. He reached out to me on WhatsApp, and I shared with him an interactive PDF workbook that we use for youth and youth leaders here in Sydney. It's called The 7 Principles of Effective Youth Discipleship. With the help of some generous friends, we've translated this interactive PDF workbook into 8 languages, including Swahili. I shared with Kizito the Swahili version, and he started using it. And I reached out to him just 3 weeks ago and said, how's it going? And and this is a word-for-word quote that he came back to me via WhatsApp. He said he's got two groups of leaders in his Sunday school, those who are literate and those who are illiterate. Putting this YouthWorks tool in Swahili into the hands of the literate youth leaders. The literate youth leaders are now intentionally upskilling the illiterate Sunday school teachers. They are more impactful in their ministry in rural Kenya, Western Kenya. That's just another example of how we're equipping leaders. Let's go to Tanzania. One of the largest Pentecostal churches in Dodoma, Tanzania. I was at a conference of the 7 leading evangelical Anglican Bible colleges last year, and he heard the children's deacon, Michael Mawache, heard me give my YouthWorks stump speech, and I shared that here in Australia, the data shows that 40% of children who are in church today, statistically, humanly, will give up on Jesus by the time they leave school. That's a 40% kill zone, spiritual kill zone in adolescence. He came to me and said, I haven't got a 40% kill zone, I've got a 70% attrition rate. I've got 1,000 kids in Sunday school each week, and he showed me on his phone, his Google sheet, the attendance of the last 4 weeks of his Sunday school. It was about 1,030 kids, but let's call it 1,000. But he said, I've only got 300 in youth group. We then, just on the side of this conference on a whiteboard, just had a quick 15-minute consultation where I sought to share with him the 7 principles of effective youth discipleship. We made 2 changes to the way Sunday school interacts with youth group. The 2 changes were these. The Year 6 kids graduate not at Christmas, but at October, the end of term 3, up into youth group. So they got term 4 with the youth group. And we then took the top third, 100 of the most mature youth group leaders, paired them up and put each of those helpers with one of the 50 Sunday school teachers. So in 2024, we changed the articulation point, the transition point, the graduation point from Sunday school to youth group, and we tripled the number of Sunday school teachers by activating senior high youth with the dignity of agency and encourage them to be sharing their faith with the Sunday school kids. What happened? I asked for his updated Google Sheets. His Sunday school attendance has grown by 11% and his youth group has grown by 25%. He's dropped the attrition rate from 70% to 10%. And did I say he's tripled the number of Sunday school teachers? Didn't cost the church a cent. It was just YouthWorks being resourced by some of our generous partners to share the wealth of our know-how and our IP, our intellectual property and our hard-gotten experience of running Sunday schools and youth groups here in Sydney with the emerging world. And by God's grace, we are seeing more children reached and won and discipled to maturity in Christ. It hasn't cost the church a cent because of partnership with generous people like you. All over the world, this gospel is bearing fruit and growing. Praise God. How else are we equipping leaders? Well, coming back from Africa, here in Australia, Leaders in Training, it's a 3-year Christian leadership discipleship pathway. Hannah can tell you much more about that, but in short, we've got 1,100 senior high kids in the last 3 years of school here in Sydney come away on a week-long camp each year. We've got 3 camps that sell out our Port Hacking campsite. We have seen over the last 10 years, every church that sent 5 youth or more to LIT, within 18 months their youth group has grown in size. We've now started LIT, Leaders in Training, in every capital city of Australia. And what we've seen up in Queensland, for example, the Presbyterian Church of Queensland came to me and said, we do this launch camp for our senior high kids. It's stuck at around 30, 40 kids. It's going nowhere. The Anglicans and the Baptists and the Pentecostals and the Uniting don't want to join us because it's Prezi. Can we just do LIT Queensland? They started LIT Queensland earlier this year because the Baptists and the Anglicans and the Pentecostals and the Uniting saw that it wasn't a Presbyterian thing, but it was YouthWorks. 100 kids now up in Queensland being trained for youth leadership, Christian leadership, and we're scaling that all around Australia. In the last weekend of January next year, through a network of 3 churches in England are starting LIT London. Year after that, we're going to start LIT North England. I'll be going there in the second week of March to work with them to ensure that the foundations of this Christian leadership development pathway are solid. We're also looking to start LIT Texas in 2027. I'm not sure how long I've been speaking for, Stu, but I'll just keep going for a few more minutes. In terms of how can you partner with us, here's a QR code that you can, do that with, and you can get to a YouthWorks giving page, which is a secure credit card or EFT donation portal for tax-deductible donations. While you're thinking about that, I want to tell you about our partnership with George Whitfield College. I understand that last year GWC was your 2024 missions project. Well, a friend of mine heard about how we are equipping leaders and educating pastors, and he said, you need to get in touch with Neville, who is running GWC's Explore project. You might be familiar with our more college PTC lay theological training program. It's brilliant. Well, GWC have skinnied that down a bit and contextualised it for the Southern African context, and it's called the Engage training course, and Neville oversees the training, I believe, of 2,000 pastors across 6 or 7 Southern African countries. And my mutual friend Garth was the one who introduced me to Neville. And I'm chatting to Neville online. I heard from him about Engage, and he said, what do you do? And I shared with him about how we are inserting YouthWorks College curriculum into higher education institutions, Bible colleges in Africa, but also through our interactive PDF workbook, available in 7 languages, putting it in the field in the hands of pastors on their smartphones. And we were talking through the 7 principles and the interactivity and how it works. And he said, why are you contacting me now? I thought, well, I'm just going to throw Garth under the bus because Garth told me to reach out to you, so I'm just doing what Garth said. He said, well, this is extraordinary because just last week I was meeting with my board and my governing board was saying Engage is really good. It gives a solid puts theological ballast in the tank of these 2,000 pastors, but we need the next thing that's going to be a practical, biblical, faithful tool that helps them land and deliver good theology and doctrine and gospel knowledge landed in real ministry. And this 7 principles of effective youth ministry, this is exactly the sort of tool we need. How can we use it? And I was able to say, brother, you just take it and share it as widely as you can. There's an African maxim, a truism. It says that 1 ox can pull 2 tons of dead weight. 2 oxen can pull 4 tons of dead weight. But when they are yoked together, those same 2 oxen can pull 16 tons of dead weight. Such is the power of partnership. And in partnership with GWC, we are now going to be standing on the shoulders that you helped build last year to build the capacity of those 2,000 pastors to be even more effective in landing the gospel in the youngest, most populous continent on earth. And we're not just doing it at GWC. With the Ugandan Christian University and St. Paul's University in Nairobi, Kenya. Between them, they have 24,000 Christian undergraduates doing a Bachelor of Teaching and Nursing and Engineering and Accounting and so on. At the end of February next year, I'll be going to those 2 universities alone and helping them embed our training modules that stand behind the 7 principles of effective youth discipleship into those courses as micro-credentials Students who go to those two universities, they are Christian universities. They are Sunday school teachers and youth leaders in Kenya and Uganda. And the vice-chancellors, backed by the bishops and the archbishops, they're Anglican institutions, they are going to embed our training modules as micro-credentials in the Bachelors of Education and Engineering and Accounting and Midwifery for some 24,000 Sunday school teachers and youth leaders. We know the impact that it's had on that church in Dodoma, Tanzania. I can't wait to see what God is going to do in partnership between YouthWorks and GWC. 2 oxen can pull 16 tonnes of dead weight. I've no idea how much 3 oxen can pull. YouthWorks, George Whitfield College and St Swithin's. Here's the pointy end of the ask. I need $100,000 to employ more administrative staff here in Sydney to free up my expert youth and children's ministry trainers so they're doing less administry and doing more ministry, to give each of them 10% capacity in their working week to be on the end of a Zoom call or a WhatsApp call to be training the the youth and children's ministers of Africa who are crying out for practical biblical help. I need $100,000. In the last 6 weeks, I've raised $43,000. Can you help me? Fully tax deductibly. There's the QR code. There's a URL that'll take you to the website. It's completely secure. The case is made there. Friends, over all the world, this gospel is bearing fruit and growing because of you and your partnership with YouthWorks and GWC and the hundreds and thousands of small and big churches in Africa. Thanks for your partnership, friends.